Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Here we are going to be battling in the Master League after the league rotation. And this is the league I've been most excited for because my Volcanion got Scald now, and I also have a Kyogre with the newly buffed Waterfall that I wanted to try. Paired with those two, we're going to have Kyurem in the lead here to be our Palkia answer because we are rough against Palkia. So heading into the first battle here, we're going against the Waterfall Gyarados. Gyarados would be a rough matchup, but since this one has Waterfall, it is much more manageable because that fast move is resisted on the White Kyurem. Here we're going to be going for the Ice Burn on the Gyarados, and it is going to get the knockout here, and they're going to bring in their Mewtwo. We're going to switch to Kyogre here because while Kyurem can hold its own against Mewtwo, if they have Palkia in the back, we need to save that Kyurem. They decide to go for the Shadow Ball here, which is interesting. I feel like Psystrike would have done more damage and is slightly faster. But we can come back with the Avalanche, and they will kill us with Confusion. And we can bring in our Volcanion once again, trying to preserve that Kyurem, because if Palkia goes against the Volcanion, it's going to be a very uphill battle. We'll be able to get the Incinerate down after sinking 2 shields into Volcanion, which is completely okay because we're going to have a lot of energy up on the Volcanion now. And their last Pokemon is going to be the Zekrom. But we have 2 Earth powers here, so even though the Electric type Charge Beam, which is an interesting choice, is super effective, we are going to get to the second Earth power here to get him into the yellow health, and I can switch to Kyurem to farm him down with Dragon Breath. And that'll be it for our first battle. I had a lot of fun with this team, actually a lot more than I thought. 2 water types can actually do pretty well in this meta, especially with all the Ho-Ohs everywhere. It seems like everyone's got one. Here's another matchup where a water type is good. The Landorus Therian. They're going to immediately switch to the Ho-Oh, and Kyogre can just have a field day here. We can get to the Avalanche here before they get to their move. This will be able to knock them into the red health. We're going to shield this move up to respect the Brave Bird because that will do a lot of damage, as my Kyogre is slightly under-leveled. I just don't have the XL candies for it, so he's only 4,200, while most are 4,600. And here we have the Palkia, but since we preserved our Kyurem, we're going to have a lot better time than if we let our Kyurem go down here. Here I'm going to call the Aqua Tail bait because well, usually they love to go for it, but here they decided against it. I'm going to farm them all the way down with Kyurem, and they will get to another move, and respecting the Spatial Rend, I will be shielding it up. It is, in fact, the Spatial Rend, and we are down 2 shields, but we are up we have an attack on Kyurem, and we have an entire Volcanion in the back. We're going to swap to our Volcanion immediately so they don't get any unnecessary farm. They will hit us here with a Sandsear Storm, which won't be enough to knock out, and we can get off the Scald, which they do have to respect because it will do a lot of damage. And the nice thing about Scald is it's 50 energy, so the second one actually only takes 2 Incinerates instead of 3, which is a huge upgrade over Hydro Pump. That doesn't end up mattering here because he gets to the Sandsear Storm, but we had a Fusion Flare Sword, so that will be the end of this battle. GG's to the opponent. We'll be going into battle number 3 here against Brian. And they will be leading with the Palkia, which is good to see here. We would not want to see Palkia once again aligned with either of our 2 in the back here. We're going to be respecting the Spatial Rend here, which happens a lot this video because Spatial Rend is devastating for Kyurem, and once he goes down, there's really nothing that can take out Palkia. They will not, however, respect our Ice Burn, so they will go down to it. But saving that shield isn't going to mean much when they bring in their Zacian and we can hit them with a Fusion Flare, which they will have to respect because it does big damage on Zacian. They do end up farming down here to a ton of energy, but I'm going to send in Volcanion, and I'm going to call the Behemoth Blade here, because close combat would lower their defense. I do call it incorrectly, unfortunately, but it doesn't actually do that much, because Volcanion is a lot tankier than you'd think. He'll fire off his second close combat, and he'll bring in Ho-Oh, which is awesome for my backline. Having 2 water types, you love to see Ho-Oh. They throw up the shield, but Scald gets a pivotal attack drop, so even when they do go for a Brave Bird here, it's not going to be able to secure the knockout because of that attack drop. It's not even really close. So we can hit him with an Avalanche, fearing that he might get off another Brave Bird. I'm not really good at counting fast moves, even Incinerates. But they just bring in their Zacian, and we can hit them with an Avalanche here. And their only option is to build up to 2 close combats here, which they are not going to be able to do, so they will go down here, resulting in another win. I really like this ABB style of team. It feels really satisfying to bait out the Palkia just to have the Volcanion run rampant, because there's really nothing that anyone can do about it. Going into the next match here, we have Kyogre, which is actually not a great matchup for me, but they will end up switching into their Metagross, and Volcanion loves to see it, especially with the new faster pacing to Scald. But here I will be respecting a potential Earthquake. It does end up being a Meteor Mash, which hurts to shield, but it is what it is. We can throw off a Scald here and either take the shield or a knockout. We will take the shield, which is really bizarre, considering he's going down to 2 more Incinerates anyway. He does get the shield from us, but we will have a lot of farm. As they bring back in their Kyogre, we can hit them with an Earth Power here. And we can switch into our own Kyogre. Even though we are down a shield and down about 400 CP, we did hit them with an Earth Power here, and they don't have much more energy on us. Plus, Origin Pulse is not going to be doing enough to knock out, so we can get to just the Avalanche here, which they will end up shielding up for some reason. And then we can get to, hopefully, another Avalanche. We cannot. They win the CMP tie, obviously. They are a bunch higher than me. But I can bring in Kyurem here, and even Avalanche won't do too terribly much damage to me, so that's fine. But I do, in exchange, get an entire attack loaded onto him. He tries to bring back in the Metagross, and I throw a Fusion Flare, fearing a Meteor Mash. I'm not sure that was really necessary, but it was a knee-jerk reaction. But they bring in their Zacian to get hit by my second Fusion Flare, and I still have an entire Volcanion left, which I can switch to and incinerate the Zacian down, and then hit the Kyogre with a disrespectful Scald here. Next, we will be heading into the final match of this set. This will be set 1 of 2. We still got a whole nother set after this one, and we'll be against Arias. And they're going to be leading with the Zacian. Here, I like to sometimes switch immediately. But other times, I will build up to a Fusion Flare and hit them with it, and then switch to Kyogre. Here they end up having Play Rough, which I have been seeing a lot of lately, and I don't really like it, mainly because it's unpredictable. But if I were to run my Zacian, I would definitely run Close Combat still, like most other people do. But I have seen a few that have had Play Rough recently. They'll be shielding up the Avalanche, which was definitely a choice. Now we're up a shield. We will be respecting the Spatial Rend, as is a common theme here, but it isn't the Spatial Rend, which is unfortunate. Here, we're respecting the Spatial Rend again. This time it is the Spatial Rend. I swear the nerf for it was not enough. It still gets off way too fast. But that's just me. We'll be hitting the Zacian here with a Fusion Flare, which they will be shielding, and we can send in our Volcanion. They will bring in their Kyogre, making this a really rough uphill battle for Volcanion. The good news is, unless he has Origin Pulse, none of his moves are going to be, or Thunder, none of them are going to be enough to one-shot the Volcanion. He does end up having Thunder, but this is really good news for Kyurem, because it means that he likely does not have an answer for Kyurem here. He can go for his Thunder or maybe an Avalanche. It does end up being the Surf, which isn't going to be enough to knock out, and we could just hit the Zacian with a Fusion Flare, and that will be the end of the battle. Hitting once again a 1 health Kyogre with a resisted move to win us the battle. That was the first set here. This team performed a lot better than I expected. I did not expect to go 5-0 with this team. I had really high hopes for it. I wanted it to work, but wasn't sure if it was going to, but it ended up working out beautifully, which is awesome. Catching a ferret here. It's alright, gonna transfer it. And that will get us most of the way to rank 14. And we can start the second set of battles here. Alright, starting this first battle, we're going to be matched up against a Dialga, which is not great for any of my team to see. I decide here to stay in and farm up to the Fusion Flare, which I can get to before the Iron Head. So I could fire that off and then switch to Kyogre here. And they will end up switching to Rayquaza. Do they know about the Avalanche, though? This is a relatively new move on Kyogre that not many people have been using. He does not know about the Avalanche, and he takes massive damage from it. This is the swing of momentum that we needed, especially because beating the Dialga will be hard. Here I will let this, I'm calling the Iron Head. It ends up being a Roar of Time and doing way more damage than I expected. I saw myself living that. But we can farm down with Incinerate here. And their last Pokemon is going to be the Necrozma, and it is not going to have a fun time in the 2s because of how much damage Incinerate does and how fast Scald is now. They do end up no-shielding, and they're just sacrificing the battle. They know that they've lost, so they're not going to try to delay it any longer. Here they end up closing out, and I will take this win. We're going into the next match here, and we will be going against someone. The JMB3, leading with Kyurem into their Mewtwo, which is an interesting lead. Since the Psycho Cut buff, I expect to see more of those. And I see the Fire Flying type, and it ends up being Charizard and not the Ho-Oh, which is surprising to me. Dragon Claw is the most damage a Charizard can do to me. Air Cutter isn't much damage, and Blast Burn is resisted. And we can get the farm all the way down with the Kyogre, with still half of our health left. Now we're up to 2 Avalanches here, and I throw this one. And it does get the shield, and I'm thinking they don't shield the Origin Pulse. They will unfortunately end up shielding it, but that's okay because we got both their shields now, and we can just let Kyogre go down. I probably wouldn't have made another Avalanche anyway because they would have thrown sooner than that, but whatever. We can switch in Kyurem here. We can let this go because it's never going to kill us unless it's the Focus Blast. It does not end up being the Focus Blast. We can hit him with the Fusion Flare, but they will catch it onto Rhyperior. Well, this might seem like a great swing in momentum for the opponent. A Rhyperior down 2 shields to a water type is not a winning scenario, especially with the Mud Slap buff here. I can just block this move, whatever it is. They do actually go for the Surf, which is interesting. You don't see a lot of those with Surf, especially after the Surf got nerfed. But we can hit them with the Scald here, and then we can just take the Mewtwo out, shield up their attack here, and we see him P-tide the Scald, so this battle is over for the opponent. I do think that we are going to see more Mewtwo's after the Psycho Cut buff, restoring Psycho Cut to what it used to be, which I think is pretty neat. Mewtwo is an OG staple of the meta, and it'd be cool to see him come back. Heading into the next match here, we're going to have our Kyurem matched up against a Marshadow. Marshadow is another neat one that got buffed this season that I would like to try if I had the XL rare candies to spare, but I'm using those on my Kyogre in the future to get him up to the 4600 that everyone else is. Here I try switching, but it ends up being a CMP tie, and I'm going to have to respect the close combat here. It does end up being the Ice Punch, unfortunately. And here I build up to another Fusion Flare and switch to Kyogre. And even if it is a close combat now, it's not going to one-shot, so I let it go. It does a little over half my health, and they bring in their Kyurem. I am going to shield this move up because it would be beneficial for me to either get their last shield or get some damage on them, because my only Kyurem answer is another Kyurem, or my Kyurem, and that's not a great answer. Here I'm going to wait out the switch timer a little bit in case I need to switch. I'm going to bring in my Kyurem, and they throw immediately, which I'm not expecting because this could only be the Fusion Bolt. It really makes no sense to throw it. And I can farm him all the way down, And he switches to Marshadow, and I switch back into Volcanion here. He is going to throw the Ice Punch for some reason, which is going to do next to nothing since it's quad resisted. Another reason that I like a Volcanion, because of the quad resist to Steel and Ice and Fire. It's a really cool typing. They're going to then bring in their Xerneas as their final Pokemon. I'm going to be able to throw a Scald here, hopefully get the attack drop. They no-shield it, interestingly, but I do not get the attack drop. They were able to fire a close combat, which doesn't end up knocking out, and Geomancy does such little damage. But Geomancy does do enough damage to where he can take me out right before I do, and I Fat Finger, missing the Fusion Flare, and so I accidentally go for a Dragon Breath, and he's able to take me out. I'm not sure I was able to win that anyway. I would have had to get the move before he did and then win a CMP tie. I just don't think that would have been possible. But we can move into the next match against the Zamazenta. We can go for a Fusion Flare here, which they do end up catching onto their Ho-Oh, which may seem like a great momentum shift for them once again, but we do have two water types in the back, which Ho-Oh does not want to be going against. We can go into Kyogre here, and we can get to the Avalanche before they are able to get to the Brave Bird. And they will be shielding up the Avalanche, and I will be doing the same on the potential Brave Bird here. It's always good to respect the Brave Bird, especially when it's going to take you out. It's not worth calling the bait on a Sacred Fire when you're going to lose a healthy Pokemon with a bunch of energy on it left. Here we can use that energy on the Zamazenta, but they do end up shielding up the move. But I can just let my Kyogre go down because he has definitely done his job. And he will be getting a defense drop. They'll be responding that by switching into Zacian, but Volcanion loves to tear apart the Zacian and Zamazenta because it 4 times resists both of their fast moves and their nuke move. Here they go for the Behemoth Blade bait, which is okay. Do what you want. We can get to the Earth Power here to knock them out. And we can knock out the Zamazenta with a second Earth Power. That even if they did have a close combat there, it would not be enough to knock me out. And that is that battle. Heading in now to our final battle of the video, and this one is going to be a really close one. If you've enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I'm a growing channel with not many subscribers. And I will probably post videos about weekly. I think that's the timeline that I'm going to be posting videos from now on, usually on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, maybe sometimes on a Monday. Last match here up against the Palkia, which is good because once again we don't want to see this on our backline. Respecting the potential Spatial Rend here, they do actually end up throwing the Spatial Rend first, and we can throw the Ice Burn here and see if they do the same. They will in fact do the same, shielding up the Ice Burn, but we get the defense drop, which almost enables us to farm them down, but not quite. I do once again respect the Spatial Rend, but it is an Aqua Tail. I probably should have counted, and that could have very well cost me the battle. Here against Zacian, though, we are able to just get the final shield from the opponent, and we can switch into our Kyogre. They will switch into their Kyurem, and once again, Kyurem is really hard to deal with, especially the black one, because of the super effective coverage on my whole team, actually. But more so the 2 water types, the Fusion Bolt. So this battle is really an uphill climb. Fusion Bolt is able to take out Kyogre, and based on the damage it did to Kyogre, things aren't looking good for my Volcanion. Here I switch it in anyway and try to get the catch, but the switch timer is not allowing it, and I just barely don't make the catch. They can hit me with the Fusion Bolt, and then I can make the catch, but both of my Pokemon are on death's door here. I can try for the Fusion Flare, don't get quite there. Try for the Earth Power, also don't get quite there. If I had made one of those moves, the game would have been over for the opponent. But his Zacian was able to take me out in the end. That'll be all for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video.